Welcome to the grim, lawless 23rd century, following the fall of U.S. Gov and mass depopulation of major cities at the hands of the multi-trillionaire de Huberton family. Baptized in radioactive hellfire, a rare mutation makes Turbo a fiercely pumped scrapper, haunted by specters from her past, surviving the post-apocalyptic wasteland one deathmatch pit fight at a time. But when she rescues the stunning trophy girl, the unlikely duo are thrust into a harrowing odyssey, evading marauding berserkers at every turn on their way to the ultimate showdown as they uncover the horrific truth behind the fall of humanity.
Morning, Jake. How you doing today?
Good, and welcome everybody to another edition of Turbo Pit Fighter, the making of the comic. What episode are we on? This is like 80 something?
No, 92, my friend. We will be in
Ouch.
the triple digits.
Wow, we're going to do something special for our 100th episode. So we are two comic creators that meet once a week on Sundays, and we tape these. We are making a comic, and you can see Kurt is inking the the front cover on the on your right side of your screen, and I'm grappling with this inside 2-page spread, which is going to be the last 2 pages of the teaser. We're making a comic. It's about going to be 28 pages of story, or what is it, 32 pages of story.
Somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, but we're releasing the first 12 pages as we go, because it takes us a while since we only work 1 day a week. We're both I'm a teacher, and Kurt has a job too, so we do this on the weekends, and so it's kind of a slow go, but it's really fun, slow and steady. And I think this is like the third week where we took time out of page production. I feel very guilty about not doing page production, and taking this time out. So I want to hopefully settle everything I need to for this back matter, so we could put out our teaser. Teasers are important to promote our work as we go, because making a comic takes a long time, and you have to have like a drip campaign to let people know about it and make all your connections and contacts, which has been working out really well. This is the last page I worked on, and I got up to this part where these nuns in garter belts are shooting off rifles. What could be cooler than that? Can't really show.
What's that, page 16?
18.
18.
And this is where we trailed off. Sorry about the shadows. And Turbo is returning back to the orphanage that's under siege. This took a while, man. This is like, we had the steeple open up, and then there's all these turrets on there where they're shooting everybody. Yeah. But the numbers are not in their favor, and you can see I have some blue line pencil here, and there's going to be like some fighting scenes. And so I can't wait to get back to just regular page production, because I think if you're a comic artist, should be working on pages. Anything else is like the unfortunate, business end of comics. I mean, can you imagine if they had like Jack Kirby doing like filing or something? Like, wouldn't you rather have him doing pages?
Or simply out at like comic book stores doing promotions to sell the comics. I mean, right. We would probably have half the amount of his work.
Right. And and so clearly I'm not Jack Kirby. We're not Jack Kirby here, but we are. I mean, that's the thing. You have to be everything. You have to be the letterer and the bottle washer, and you have to make all your comics, and you have to promote it, and you have to do everything. So a lot of one-man bands out there, but Kurt and I, at least we have each other, so we can divide up the roles a little bit. And I'm lucky to have Kurt. He's a whiz with the social media and stuff. So Yeah, so I want to finish up these pages. I just made a graphic here that's like, who is Elevena? You can see that we have one side, we're going to just have the Doom Magazine's logo. I came up with this, creating a world destroyed. What do you think about that as a headline?
It's good. I just want to jump in real quickly before you get long-winded
Yeah.
about all of this editing part of it. I think you have probably too much material, and this episode you could just spend cutting stuff out and making the type bigger in order to fit things in. I just want to bring you back to this design, which was an edited version of the original design you had done for the back matter for our first turbo teaser. So, and with each of these little action-packed, blocks of text, you gave it a different font, it teased it out, you had this black flame and such. So I know you're ramping up and amping up for a Substack for doing magazines and and putting material out, and that's where that QR code could come in and be handy on this page, and we could direct people. But really, I think just to relieve you of some stress and anxiety, just go ahead and just find 5 decent blocks of text that kind of give a great summary of who Elevena is, and back characters and the future and the past, and do your funky business with it, brother.
Yeah, so I was saying I could make these. I could make this box go a little bit longer down here, and just kind of stretch these things out. I have 12-point type here, so that's pretty standard for reading. I could go to a type style that takes up more room, but this isn't like the back cover where we're where you want to be short and pithy. This is this is interior content, so I wanted to make it a little bit longer, but I don't know. We have these 2 graphics, and I added the third one. The Turbo Pit Fighter logo's up here. There's nothing up here, so and then I was just gonna have like very minimal captions for the Ikes. And as you guys can hear, Kurt's getting a call coming in. So maybe
Sorry
that's
about that.
Hollywood. They want to option turbo. That could be a Hollywood production company that wants to option turbo, right? Not yet. Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna stretch this stuff out. I'm gonna explain who Elevane is a little bit. And so this is basically, you can just like figure this is like dummy text right here. And oh man, they're being persistent, huh? But yeah, I did want to ask you about this page right here. Like, I can make Mr. Ike bigger, but I don't really see why he needs to be bigger. And I could make this text bigger, and I could just have less of it. But I need something to go up here, and if we don't have any ideas right this second, then I'm gonna probably have to come back with that by next week. I didn't want to explain too much about the Ikes either. Like, who are these people? And I'm gonna say Mr. Ike is a. I can't remember this little. Do you remember the name of the guild that we said he was going to be part of? I thought it was MechTech.
It was the
guild or something, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So Mr. Ike is a masterclass handyman. What do we call him? Master class machinist.
Mechanic. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, then you got the mech tech in there, and this font is obviously not working. but and I want to say, but he has a problem with his wife. Mr. Ike
Troubles at home.
is
Troubles at
is
home.
a masterclass mech machinist, but and that'll explain who that other lady is on the other page. But can't seem to reconcile with his wife. But right, but has trouble, but has no shortage of marital trouble. There we go. At least for now. And so I think people can get the hint that Mrs. Ike is trying to shoot his ass. Oh, I wrote no shardage. That's a bad typo right there.
Shardage?
But yes, no shardage. Yeah, guys, you don't want to. If you make a typo, try not to make it where it contains the word shart in it, if you can help it. All right. No short. Yeah, why? You see, I'm playing with this runaround here. And I think the problem is that the runaround is too much. It's only one. You can make it 0. And so I'm just doing a little copy fitting here. There. Okay, there we go. And again, I'm not happy with Palatino as a font, but it's gonna be fine for now. And we'll move this down. Yeah, so this week I did not get to do any writing for the Substack, and I was thinking about it a couple of different times that that I want to make progress on that project, but I ended up with a bunch of raw notes last time. I think I even shared some of the raw notes with you.
Yeah.
But what I was giving some thought to was just some kind of pre-thinking is going to be the sentience. I think that's going to be the next installment that I write, and you'll help me with the timing on when to start releasing these things.
I can't wait to see the sketches for the sentience, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
the times you've explained these things, I've got like 35 different versions of them in my head. If I got some time, I'm gonna do a little doodling myself. But oh my God, it could be. If you really put the Jack Kirby elbow into it, it would be pretty fantastic.
Right. Well, every one of them is going to have an exterior and an interior. And for people that don't know what we're talking about, the sentients are going to be. We did describe them on a previous episode, but it's going to be right here. It's the sentience, the slow birth of longevity. And we are going to stretch back to the 2020s, so we're going to say, like, in the 2020s, humans were born that lived in to ages like 150 years old, but in the 2050s or the 2100s, there was already people that were 200 years old, but they don't look human at that point because you have your organs are being kept alive artificially, and your exterior is this kind of like avatar that could look like metal or plastic or silicone rubber or any kind of advanced fiberglass, but it didn't necessarily have to be human. And I was trying to think of I want to base some of these sentients on real people that are alive today.
Ooh,
Like,
wow.
like maybe an Elon character, maybe a Bill Gates character. And, I also wanted to come up with like a justification of why they're being kept alive for so long.
Well, you could
And,
do a
you know,
Nazi. You could do like an Adolf Hitler version too, where they finally Adolf Hitler is acceptable again, and so they take his brain that's been in South America, in that secret bunker, that Nazi bunker in South America, and they just say, you know what, he's reemerging, and he's then this like I don't know, some weird like German Shepherd or something.
well, I
Like you
think,
don't.
I think Woody Allen did. I think Woody Allen did that one already. Yeah, I mean,
Ah!
what our future is commenting on is that, the consolidation of billionaires, like that's going to be really messy when the billionaire families all consolidate, so that, I mean, because think about it right now. If Elon, imagine if Elon, and with all his money, and Bill Gates with all his money, and the Koch brothers with all their money, and the Waltons with all their money, imagine if like their grandkids all intermarried and just created one big family, right? That could be disastrous because you'd have so much concentrated wealth out there that nobody else would be able to compete, and they'd be able to buy every industry. And so that's what's happening in this timeline, in this world, um
That leads up
and
to the
the sen-
apocalypse.
right, well, the apocalypse will be, once, I mean, it goes little by little. I mean, things go downhill. There's a lot of regional fighting, there's a lot of cultism. But what'll happen is when Elevena reveals the footage of the Dehuberdins, and what they've really been doing is, kidnapping, disseminating, um, a lot of young women, forcing them to have children that have dehubertin DNA, and then making them also raise the children, kind of like on their own at that point. So that'll be kind of like a comment on what's going on now with the, reproductive rights stuff. But
Do
when
you?
it
Can
gets
I jump
revealed
in?
that, yeah,
I had a tangent
good.
that's really
I
reflective of a
need you to go.
question to see if you have any information on this. But I heard rumors that Elon Musk has like almost like 20 kids or something, but he actually doesn't physically inseminate his his girlfriends or wives or something like that. Like it's all artificially done. Have you heard this? I don't know if I'm leaning on something that
No, I
I've
haven't.
listened to,
Yeah,
listening
I'm not
to
going to
one
be
of
as
my other
good.
podcasts.
I'm not going to be as good on real life stuff. But as far as I know, Elon is a full-blooded, red-blooded, heterosexual male that has had all of these very expensive affairs that have cost him a lot of money. Um, for like settlements and stuff, and every time he has a kid. But I haven't heard that he was artificially inseminated. I mean, it's kind of the other way around in real life. In real life, the billionaires, every time they have a kid, they're obligated to support it, and they could also be dividing up their empire, and that could make their other kids pissed off, especially if there's, different generations, right? Like you think
Right.
about Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger had like this affair in Brazil, and he's already got grown kids that are like, okay, I'm going to inherit, under my thumb and satisfaction and all this publishing and stuff.
Wow.
But
Wow.
now Mick had an affair in Brazil. The lady got pregnant, and she had a paternity test, and she won in court. So Mick had to hand over like all kinds of settlement money, and had to pay her some kind of like, agreeable fine for her to stop her claim on getting her boy the same share as all Mick's other kids, right?
Wow.
Because this is a South American kid, and so I don't know. I'm not sure how that actually all worked out, but but it's financially a mess. I'm sure mixed accountants, we're not exactly
It's attorneys.
pleased about it. So
Well, it goes to
yeah,
show.
and
I mean, I'm
so
just kind of bringing up a riff where it's like, the when you're that wealthy, like beyond wealth, um, you can by means do whatever the hell you want to do, but the legal repercussions of having children, it will lead to some disdain. If everybody's
right,
not feeling like they're being treated equally.
yeah. So in my story, it's going to be the other way around. Like the Dehubertans are going to try to create a class of people that have their DNA, and there might even be. I was thinking about making some kind of like Geiger counter like device where you can detect DNA. You can identify this DNA, from afar, so that it gives you special access to things, like he's got dehubertin DNA. So I'm still thinking about, I'm still germinating on a couple of ideas like that. Maybe I should move this into the center. No, maybe I'll have it on the side. Um, but the what I do know is that you asked about when does the big apocalypse happen, and I think I'm settling in on that. The apocalypse is going to kick off when Elevena makes public the proof and the footage of this factory, and that really makes the Dehubertans unpopular, and so they're going to exile the guy that was inseminating all these women, and so he's going to go out and be kind of like a pariah, and he's going to mask his face from then on, but he's also going to be incredibly cruel, and he's also incredibly strong and enhanced, and he's going to just roam the wasteland, just destroying people and messing people up, which we'll see at the very end of issue 2. And that'll be the unbeknownst one. But when Elevena releases the footage and only part of it, that's when they retaliate and they wipe out the major cities, because they were revealed to just be completely criminal. I mean, up to that time, they were just corrupt, and they were doing like hits on it and everything, but they had a veneer, of legitimacy, because they have all these businesses and they have all these people in life subscriptions. Entire states signed contracts for the life subscriptions, and they still had this kind of reputation that they were a legitimate company and they were above board. But when that one Dehubertin got caught, it really made things bad. And because they were all going to get arrested, it depends on what year, because after 2222, there's no more government to arrest anybody, is there?
Right.
So right, so that's when, at some point there's going to be these strikes, and we open up Turbo 1, page 1, panel 1, with the geographical thinning when Turbo's 10, right? So what year would that be? Because if Elevena is 24 in 2222 and she's 44 when young Turbo meets her, that means so I got to figure this out.
Get a calculator.
This is fun. Well, I have a timeline with numbers written down, but we do need a date. We do need a date certain that Turbo number 1 opens up, and that the geographical thinning was just happening when Turbo was 10. So we know that much. And if Turbo's 24, in 2242, we can just do the simple math and figure out when the big cities were depopulated. And that's why Elevena surrenders, because they threatened that they were going to take out all the other areas, basically just wipe everybody out, because they no longer, a lot of people abandoned them, and they could no longer do these subscriptions and everything. So they figured, well, then what do we need, regular everyday people for anymore? And so they just start wiping everybody out. And so Elevena surrenders, agrees to go into prison, and accepts the terms, and that's when Turbo is going to find her in prison. She'll have been in prison for about 20 years at that point. So so we are just trying to advance the story, and at all these different dates, we have different things going on. But just to close out on the sentience, I wanted to have some people that are kept alive because they're the only ones that can do something, right? And maybe that is because they have wealth and they can unlock the wealth, and the dehubridans are keeping them alive because they can unlock these hidden caches of currency, radioactive pellets, weapons, mountains and mountains of digital money or whatever, and only they have the code, so they're kept alive. They're allowed to stay alive forever. But some people might be kept alive because of their intellect, because they're inventors and scientists. Like, imagine, an Einstein level scientist. Everybody would keep him alive, and they would want to keep him producing, theories and whatever else, right? So there'll be a mix, and some of the sentients will be alive because of merit, and they have some good thing to offer the world, and some people would just be alive because they're Paris Hilton, and they just have tons and tons of money, and they just inherit it. So the sentience will be kind of like I was thinking of a funny oldie, it's like an old age home / Disney World, where there's lots of they live in style, but there's a lot of distractions, and the real key thing with them is like everything's a mind game with the sentience, because everything's being monitored. If they're living inside this like geodome, like all of their conversations are monitored, but some of them are part of the resistance, and they just live as these, in this golden cage, and but they're still contributing in lots of different ways to the resistance, whether it's technology, like theories and science, that they're trying to get to the resistance people, like Elevena, and same thing with Elevena. She'll be in this prison where she lives, and everything's very closely monitored. So the thing about the sentience is, and Elevena, is that they can communicate mentally. There'll be codes, and there'll be different ways of them, to communicate, to get around the monitoring. So it'll be a lot. There'll be a lot of like I guess cat and mouse games, with with them being in captivity, let's say, the sentience. But there could also be sentients who have a really strong avatar, like their body is like a really big robot and really has a lot of features, and it could be like a weaponized death robot, let's say. So sentience could be a lot of different things, but basically it's just like they're just kept alive for a very long time, and they're called the sentients because they're they have some kind of like illuminating contribution or value, and they also can communicate. Some of them can communicate, right? Like the Nepo babies will not have the communication skills, that the Einstein types will have. And so, there'll be a lot of different distinctions. But
I
what
just
is it?
have to say, I just have to say, you've got to see Zardoz. Can you please write this down? Write it down and watch this movie. It's your homework. There's a
Okay.
scene. Every time you go on about the sentience at this point, I keep tripping out because I'm not trying to say it's filled with the wealth that you're beefing it up with, but when you go through Zardoz's story and then you get to this particular ending scene, close to the end scene, man, it's like a ton of bricks falling on you, for the eccentric styling of a post-apocalyptic world, or a communal society that's trying to stay outside of uh, um, you know sheer social chaos and everything. You gotta see Zardoz. Do whatever you can and
Okay.
watch Zardoz. It's just killing me because I really do feel like, since we have so much closeness in the way of what we enjoy watching and reading for the most part. I think you're going to be angry at me that I didn't force you to watch this like 20 years ago.
How could you? All right,
Oh,
I'll check it out. I love seeing sci-fi, definitely. I just
but it also has a ton of similar story mechanisms. I don't quite know how to describe it in the way, like the warring fractions and the manipulation of the higher ups in society, kind of, using they're called the barbarians, and it's so and I just have to say, and I'm going to flash a nice image up, Sean Connery in that
oh yeah.
outfit. Oh man, woo, what a beefcake. So anyhow, I just to
Okay.
give you a little bit, just a I think the thing that you're experiencing right now, and I want to do everything I can to support it, is a dumping of tons of material that you've had over the years. And you know, as I said earlier in the episode, I can't wait to start seeing your conceptual sketches for these sentient creatures, because I keep coming back to the idea of them being sort of like astrological symbols. So,
Yeah, I mean,
they,
it could be that, but think about how varied it could be. You're alive for hundreds of years. You have all the technology to create any kind of avatar you want. What would you build? Like I said, like somebody might want to make like like a wax figure of Cary Grant and then build it out of silicone and metal innards and everything. But some people might want to be a robot, looking thing, and some people might want to be Minnie Mouse. It could be anything. There
yeah,
it's just the container for all of the mechanisms that are pumping your organs inside of it. And when you open them up, that's when you're going to see the Rube Goldberg innards, of like lungs and heart and everything. And and it might even be different biologically then, like how efficiently they can keep a brain alive and a voice alive. Like some people might have a voice box, some people might have an AI, some people might have some people might have their original teeth. It all depends. um so I mean, how old they are and who they are and their personality. So there will be fantastical creatures, and it's funny, Kurt. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, and I should probably Google this so that I'm not just talking out of my butt. But I heard that there's these theme parks already right now I think that might be in Florida. But when you go in, you go inside these carts that are elevated, right? So you know those like bucket trucks that people go in, but they're like these characters. And like, you and your family all load into this giant squirrel, let's say, and you move across the park. Or it could
Okay.
be, a bunny, or it could be, Daffy
Yeah.
Duck, or it could be like these big things, but you're moving around, because the park is real spread out, and but also the fun is being in these ride things. They're like electric car, based things. And I've heard that my students are telling me they have these things now. I don't know. It sounds like it's really expensive to be in them, but so and they also have these crude robots now, like in old age homes. They have these crude robots that are in supermarkets now, that are
Yeah.
keeping an eye on people. But just imagine 200 years later, what it's going to be. Like, some people might want to be a famous character from a literary work. Some people might want to be, some people might want to be, just something as simple as a metal box, with eyes on it. Some people might want to be R2D2. Like could be all these cultural references. So it's all going to be, everything's going to be public domain in the future, right?
Personalized. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I can see that. I think though, and this kind of brings another topic of ours in, is the whole like public domain characters, and people not having like originality as an ability. So everything you've mentioned is based on somebody else's creative efforts. But here you have, let's say, quasi godly, immortal abilities, yet you're going to cartoon that into, oh, I want to walk around as Minnie Mouse that talks like Charles Bronson, like a like like a cartoon, like you want to become a cartoon. So then then you get into these just different places where people, there's their version of Batman, but there's like 30,000 of them or something. It's just, yeah. I think it heads. We are ultimately heading into something like this because of I just have to say it, like so many people just not having original ideas and being so emotionally connected to those things that have already come into existence. Star Wars, Star Trek, X-Men, Game of
Yeah, I mean,
Thrones, yada yada yada.
you have women that are converting themselves into Barbie, right, with plastic surgery
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
and
It's crazy. It's
implants and
crazy.
like removing ribs and stuff. So yeah, I
Crazy.
mean, the world is going to be crazier and crazier, and what a challenge it is for sci-fi writers, because you want to
Yes.
try to you want to try to predict what's going to happen, but you also want to make it into an interesting story, not just like a documentary. And then you also have to, the minefield of like, well, this has already been done, that's already been done, we can't do this, we have to avoid that, you know
Or this is too
but
offensive.
you know right, or maybe it's too real. I mean, we get into the discussion of the pleasure bots, and then we're going to get into some real, hairy subjects. But this really, really could affect the what they call the nuclear family, in the future, if horn dog men can just buy a artificial companion, and it not only is soft to the touch, and it has fake boobs, and it has all of the let's say toys that people want in the privacy of their own rooms. But now they're going to start with the AI. They're going to start talking to the guys, and I'm sure there'll be a male version and an LGBT version, and one, whatever your specialty is, whatever your preference is, I'm sure there'll be one. But without a doubt, the best sellers are going to be female bots, that are meant to just be slaves to males. A lot of people might not know that the word robot, if you Google this, the first use of the word robot is attributed to a Czechoslovakian playwright in the 1920s. He wrote a play called Mr. Rossum's Universal Robots, and the word robot was invented in that play, coming from the Czechoslovakian word robota, which meant slave or forced servant. And so every time we say the word robot, we're saying a version of the Czechoslovakian word for slave. So and this could tie into the timeline in some very important ways. I mean, this is how the family breaks down, and there's it's rarer and rarer and rarer to have like a traditional family, and how about the deheritance? When they're recruiting for the RM, just dangle a free pleasure bot and you'll get all the recruits you want, right? Because now they don't need to be tied down. And that's another interesting story going back to Valentine's Day. I have this slideshow that I teach my students about the legends and the myths of Valentine's Day, and it goes back to this Roman emperor in the 3rd century named Claudius. And it was like Claudius the second or third or fourth or whatever, but they called him Claudius the Cruel because he was invading all these countries and building the Roman Empire up, but he forbade his men to ever get married and have families because he wanted them to be unattached so they can go, invade all these countries. And so what they did was they would have a lottery once a year, or I don't know how often it was, but they would have a lottery where all the young women were their names were all put into a big jug, and each male would pull out a name of a woman, and they would be assigned to the male, and they would have to be with the male so that they could get their all their desires met, and so that they could be available for war. And just to close this off, Father Valentine was a priest who was marrying these couples in secret because he was keeping, he was religious, and he was, keeping couples and the idea of love and, sanctity
of
and
marriage. Yeah,
right, exactly. And they found out about him and they put him in jail. And that's when he, and he befriended, this is a little weird, but he befriended the jail warden's daughter. They don't say exactly how old she was, but I think she might have been kind of on the young side. And they had some kind of relationship. I don't think it was physical. I don't know, but he wrote her. He wrote her. From your Valentine. When he. When he wrote her, and that's where we get it from. And then, of course, they beheaded him in the public square. And then it wasn't about 200 years later when the same church that beheaded him said, "Oh no, actually, this guy's a saint," and so they sainted him, and we've had Valentine's Day ever since. So that's
Ta-da!
a little bit of history, and don't bother me about accuracy because these are all disputed legends, and but this is the story that we get. And right now there's at least two different parishes in Italy that claim that they have Valentine's bones, and that it could have just been somebody with the same name, so who knows what's going on. But but the point is, like, when you're thinking about this world building, and we're thinking about the way robots are going to affect society, the way technology, weapons are going to affect society, the way artificial longevity is going to affect society. It's not just a chapter. It's like you have to tie all this stuff together, right? Because in a real world, everything's happening all at once. There's no separation. I mean, that's the funny thing about the Road Warrior. we talk about the Road Warrior, which is my favorite, fiction of all time. Why are they only concerned about gas, right? They're like, oh, we got to get the
Right.
gas, we got to get the gas, right? What about like, diabetes medication? Like, what about like everything, what about, food? What about,
Well, to answer that
so,
question, it was the
yeah,
70s oil shortage, the gas hikes, and every country, especially Australia, it was terrifying people. And so once again, science fiction was coming into play using the current phobias or apprehensions or apprehensiveness about coming said technological advancement or shift in culture, economics, and society. You lean into it in order to make a message. I mean, that robot story, the Czechoslovakian, that's once again, it's a similar type of place. We're dealing with how much, change really, well, not even how much change. Like if you take the context of Turbo being 20 plus years old as a story that we started, you started, and we were kicking it back and forth to bring it into life as a comic, and I'm inking the first, issue as we sit. We're looking at 20 years of like Amazon developing itself. I mean, I remember when Amazon was a shit book selling site. I just remember. I remember
yeah,
buying shitty books off of Amazon, and one day you could buy records and CDs, or it just started like amalgamating into, and then it became to the point where everybody had to buy, like you've been stating, a subscription, an Amazon Prime Life
yeah,
subscription in order to not pay shipping, and it is a good deal, but it's also coming at what prices, to ourselves as individuals, and that's what you're chucking in and back and forth with all the crazy comic book sci-fi elements that we have at our fingertips, from Jack Kirby's Commandy to Planet of the Apes to Mad Max to Zardoz. We're just playing with all of this fun stuff that we've enjoyed since childhood. But now, even 20 years later, we're looking at this trajectory of, a severe sense of division in wealth. And then to answer your question, what is the most important thing right now? Is it gasoline? Is it you know being
yeah. I
able to
mean,
have your
for the purpose of a Hollywood movie, you want to simplify things, right? And you do want to
right?
like illustrate one area. Like I watched this movie last night from Colombia that was called The Initiated, and they were like, well, all the water has been poisoned by acid rain. And so everybody's fighting over clean water. All these people are dying because they're drinking contaminated water. By the way, the movie, I thought the movie was good, like about 15 minutes in, I thought the movie was going to be great because all of a sudden they have these scenes of these female wrestlers and they were
Ooh,
really duking it out, and they had some pretty, good choreography, like trying to make it look real and all that. But the movie, and it was really centered around, I'm giving it a lukewarm review. It was really centered around this like gumshoe reporter that was uncovering all of these things, and as he was getting closer and closer to the corruption in the town and the mayor and everything, then they ratcheted up the attacks and the hitman and everything, and not very much female wrestling, so so that like the female masked Colombian wrestlers, I was all for it, but
ooh,
and they had a
ooh,
good
yeah.
character. Yeah, the female protagonist, the wrestler chick, they called her Lady Massacre, or in Spanish, I forget, it was like Masacre, but they really underused her. They should have made her the detective. Like I don't know. It's whatever. But but it just shows like these sci-fi movies. They just take one thing at a time, and I'm thinking about these worlds. Maybe I am complicating this more than I need to. But I am thinking about a world where everything, really, bears down on the story. because you can't forget anything. You have to think about food. You have to think about when do people go to the bathroom, all this stuff, all the things that people just ignore in Hollywood because you're trying to cram everything down. I'm thinking about this because we have a comic, but then in the Substack I have a lot of space to expound, just in writing, and this is where you could explain all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, like, if I get like a fan that actually reads all the backstory stuff, they will enjoy the comic like 10 times more.
And this also ties into other comic stories that you have yet to unveil. So there's always going to be a Quentin Tarantino universality of storytelling.
Yeah, I love B movies, and schlock exploitation cinema and all that. But for this project that we're working on right here, I am thinking about how did the world get this way, and try to make our storyline different by thinking of things that a lot of other. I mean, how many comics you open up the first page and they're like, the world was in a nuclear holocaust. It's like the first character, the first,
Disaster.
right? They were just doing that with the Ralph Bakshi movies, right? The wizards, and there was a nuclear apocalypse, and then, hundreds of years later or thousands of years later, it gave rise to the fairies and the elves. So, they don't spend a lot of time on the nuclear holocaust, right? But we're going to spend some time on it, and it's going to be, it's going to be radioactive gas that was released by the angry dehubritants to depopulate the big cities, but hold off on all the other areas. And that's going to be the world that we're building. Is like there's still some other areas, like the rural areas and the kind of like outskirts of the cities there's still people there, but they're really struggling, over resources and over everything else, and then antics ensue.
Well, we're over the 45-minute mark, and we are in a place of completion to this episode, and we're also getting ready for a indie comic exchange with the Roland Man from Silverline Comics. And
Veteran.
so we'll be, this is the 1988 right here, beginning of the whole thing. So we're pretty excited about it. Not to give too much away. Where the heck did I put it all? I just had these things. Oh, here they are.
But
I'm gonna tease with some comics here. These are some other indie comic exchange. These are Tony Figueroa's Wrestler Zero. So we have him signed up to come on for an interview. And then this one,
I like that.
this is Jay and Bethke. Haven't learned to figure out how to say his last name, but this is really what our channel's about. And Jay reached out to me, just super excited about what we're doing, inspiring. He's got this is like a 20-year-old story that he started and then he had to put down because of the real world. Sounds familiar, Jay? And so based on our channel, he asked me how he could put something together in the way of a teaser. I sent him to 2 videos that we really talked about making the Turbo Pit Fighter #1 teaser. And but here's the rub. So this is just what he has at this point, which is a sci-fi suspense comic. And it's just his pencils, but this is what he was saying is like his layout pencils. So we're looking at somebody who's actually getting started. And this is going to be super excited to keep a conversation going with Jay, because this is what we're really all about Jake and I, we're both art educators. And we're also doing this as a documentation of what our process is, only doing a comic book every Sunday. But we want to build a community around this thinking. It doesn't even have to be around us. We're the only two guys right now we know of, guys and gals or girls and girls, whatever it is, that's getting together to make a comic, work on the same comic. Jake pencils and I ink. So
usually when we're not doing our teaser and I'm not doing the layouts on this old MacBook, but yeah, Kurt, I imagine there's going to be people coming along anytime now because they're making comics out there. They're just not podcasting it. And when we spoke to our friend Eli of Cosmic Lion Productions, he was saying that they get together online and they all have drawing circles, and they talk about their they're all collaborating on the same publishing company, and so they have a lot in common to talk about. But how cool is that? Number one, and number two, if somebody just starts saying, "Hey, let's start filming this on one window on one side and one window on the other side," then then we're not the only ones anymore. But for now, it seems like we're the only ones doing this.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there I watch that get together and sit and talk primarily about comics and what they're working on, but even kind of like bitch and moan like old men do, at a coffee shop. But I think the thing about it, not that I'm saying, okay, I will say it this way, and I have said it before. Jake is just an absolute sincere friend of mine, but he also takes a lot of the heavy lifting that I'm not interested in doing when it comes to comic books, which is the writing stories, scripting, and even the penciling part. I have a lot of struggles when it comes to all that kind of stuff. I'd rather get into this kind of thing. I want to just push medium around and make a bit picture. And then the other thing I love doing is making a comic book. And I was the one that really pushed forward in us getting into these turbo teaser releases because it helps promote us. And it doesn't give people that way out of unsubscribing to us. In other words, going, well, these guys meet every Sunday. They got a 32-page comic book they got to make. I'll check back in 2028 to see where they're at. So with that being said, I'm a strong believer that if you have weaknesses, you have to do either two things. You got to drop the strengths and get better at the weaknesses, then come back to the strengths, or you need to find somebody to do the strength of the weakness for you, which is their strength and their passion. And Jake and I have that. So if there's anything that you can take as a person, a part of our community here and visiting and watching, is to look for people who you admire their work and their strengths in comics and see if they want to do something. It doesn't have to be a 32-page comic book. It doesn't have to be a graphic novel. It could be a 6-pager, a 4-pager, a 2-pager. It's just something that helps both of you kind of move the pegs along and everything. But other than that, Jake, that's all I have. Do you have anything for these good people before we let them back out there to watch, to read some comics or make some comics?
No, folks, just please tune in and sample our other channels. We got the Comics That Influence and the Indie Comic Exchange. And we'll be right back here doing the making of Turbo Pit Fighter next Sunday.
Awesome. I'll see you.
Bye.